Okay. From the first simple example that we did, we are able to analyze input data, output data, and processing requirements. So, but there's if you want to turn this into a code, there are some things you still need to do. So now we are now moving a little bit into variable declaration. So now if you want to derive variables from these ones, from the input data, output data, processing requirements, you can be able to know the number of variables that you will need in your code. So length will be a variable. There will be a variable for storing length. There will be a variable for storing breadth. There will be a variable for storing area. So now, we now look at it this way. Then we have to name our variable, just as we have discussed before. So we have to give our variable a name. And we already know the rules of naming our variable. So for this input data called length, you can call it length. You can call it anything you like. You can call it length. You can call it len. It depends on you. You can call it L. It depends on you. But you know that since it's a variable, you don't start with a capital letter. And it's very good for you to use a descriptive name. So out of these three, length, len, and L, the descriptive one is length. So when you see it anytime, you already know what this length is actually about. Then we have also talked about data type. Now, length, the data length is 5 centimeters, is a whole number. So that means that length should be an integer. So from this place, you can specify your variable name and the data type. The same thing with breadth. So you can call it breadth. You can call it anything, maybe B. It depends on you. So, and it's also, from this question, it is an integer. It's not in all cases that these two things will be whole numbers. So if they are not whole numbers, that means that they are not integers. So they might be a float and they might be a double. So like area now, when you find area, since you are multiplying integer by integer, it will also produce an integer. So, but you can also name your variable. The variable for area has, you can name it area. Then the data type is also an integer. So this is simple, very simple. Know that your data type can be other things apart from an integer. So let's move to the second example that we did. Let's look into the variable and the data type that we might find in this example. So like number of pupils. So number of pupils, you can name it as pupils. You can call it number underscore number of pupils. So you must put in mind the naming conventions, as in the rules that you must follow to name your variables. So, and know that variables identifier are variable names. So now, number of pupils, they told us we have 20 pupils. No, never in life, we cannot have 20.5 pupils because they are human beings, they must be whole number. So that means that here, number of pupils is an integer. Score. score can be a whole number. It can also be an integer. So, but let's assume that our score is, it can be an integer, it can be a whole number, and it can be a float, it can be a decimal number. Somebody can score 50 and a half, 30 and a half. So that is 30.5, 50.5. So because of that reason, we can call our score a float. So we can also name our score and then make it a float. Then for our output data, average score of the class in one subject. So like already I have something similar here that we can use as our variable name. So we can have something like this, average score. You can see that it is joining together of two words, average and score. And the second word starts with a capital letter. Average score 1 means average score in one subject, in a particular, the first subject, the average score in a particular subject. Then here we have average score 2, that is average score in 8 subjects. So average score, average, anything that is average, we always try to make it to be a float. So this one too will be a float, and this one also will be a float. Also here we have so we've already named this one average score 2. We have done for number of pupils. This grand total score is already a variable name. Grand total score is correct like that as a variable name. Then our total score, that is score 1, score 2, score up till score 20 in a particular subject. The score of the first student, score of the second student, score of the third student, score of the fifth student, up to the score of the 28th student. Then the grand total score will be total score in first subject, total score 1. Total score 1 is another variable that you'll be having here. Total score 2 is another variable that you'll be having here. Total score 3 is another variable that we'll be having here. And total score will be all this, anything that has to do with score here will be a float, because even the score alone, just a single score is a float. So total score will result into a float. All the score 1, score 2, they will also be floats. So all these ones, score 1, score 2, score 3, will also be floats. Total score 1 will be floats. So this grand total score will also be floats. So like that, we have been able to see those ones that are integers and floats at the same time. We have been able to see those ones. So also let's move to another example. So here, the input data, your employee name. You know, employee will have first name and last name. And they will be group of a character. So employee name normally will be array of character, because in C, we don't have string as data type. So this one will be array of character. So employee number will also be integer, because employee number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a basic salary. base salary we can have naira side and kobo side. So to be on a safer side, we make it to be a float. Anything that has to do with money, to be on safer side, we can make it a float, so that if anything wants to happen, we know that we are safe. Now the employee name, we've said it before, that's array of character. The employee number, that's an integer. The total allowance, know that the allowances, each one of them is a float, so the total allowance will also be a float. Then tax will also be a float, because you are going to multiply 5% or 8% with basic salary, and basic salary is already a float. Then contributory pension, the same thing applies, a float. So the gross pay too will also be a float. So the net pay as well will be a float. Then so we've talked about the tax, the basic salary, the total allowance. I've forgotten, we did not put the variable name. So employee name, it can be, you can write it as employee name. Employee number, you can write it as employee number. So you make the second word to be basic salary, you can call it B salary. Housing allowance, you can call it housing. Wardrobe allowance, you can call it wardrobe. Transport allowance, you can call it transport. Health allowance, you can call it health. Book allowance, you can call it book. Traveling allowance, you can call it travel. So we already have them up there. Okay, the pension too, you can call pension. Okay, the tax, you can call tax. Contributory pension, you can call it pension. Your gross pay, you can call it G pay. Your net pay, you can call it N pay. So your total allowance, you can call it T allowance. So we already have all of the other ones. We already have their variable names. So this is what variable names looks like. Well, we've not had something like a double. We've not used something like double. In some cases, when you need high precision, maybe about temperature, you are trying to take temperature of a particular place or something like that. So you might need to have high precision of what the temperature of that particular thing is. So any data that is having decimal places, but you need high level of precision in that data, you make that data to be a double. For example, things like temperature, you can make it to be a double. In a problem, when you have something like temperature, you can make it to be a double. Then we've talked about integer, we talk about float, we have talked about array of character. So integer, we have talked about integer, float, double, array of character. Then we also have character. For example, if you want to signify whether somebody is a male or is a female, so that one we can make it. You can say sex. You want to write F or M as sex, so you can make it a single character. So that one is a character. So these are the primitive data type. Array of character is not part of the primitive data type, but is a derived data type. But the other four, integer, float, double, and character, they are the primitive data type that we have in C programming language.